Okay, good morning. Happy Monday to all of you listening. It's another week of Monday Mornings with Margie, and I have a very cool guest on today. I think you all know that I'm the Director of Operations at Achieve, and the primary thing we do at Achieve is treat people with depression and OCD using deep TMS. And the company that makes the machines that we utilize here is Brainsway. So I'm fortunate to have the CEO of Brainsway here with me, and I'm gonna let him introduce himself and tell us a little bit about himself before we move on to the questioning. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much, Margie. It's really great to be here. I really appreciate the invitation for this. So my name is Chris von Jako. As Margie described, I'm the president and CEO for the company called Brainsway, which delivers the systems for deep TMS. I actually started with the company back in January of this year. So it's been quite an amazing year for me to start with this company. I've been in the medical industry for almost 30 years, where my primary focus has been on the development and commercialization of minimal invasive technologies to improve patient experiences and outcomes. That's really what I've spent most of my career on. And most of my career has been really focused on applications in the brain, where minimal invasive and non-invasive treatments, of course, are extremely critical. I've worked at some small companies to some larger, really well-known medical device companies like Medtronic. And I happen to live obviously in Massachusetts. I got the skyline of Boston behind me. So fire away. So looking forward to it. So thanks so much.
Yeah, thank you. So why don't you tell people a little bit about Brainsway? Because people will hear Brainsway. I mean, when we talk about it, we have a Brainsway machine, like it's sort of a known, commodity where a lot of people don't know even about TMS, and they know less about Brainsway until we talk with, people, providers and patients about it. So why don't you tell people a little bit about Brainsway, and maybe a little bit about what made you interested in coming to work for Brainsway and sort of lead Brainsway at this time?
Great. Yeah, thanks. Great question. So Brainsway was founded back in 2003 to commercialize the deep TMS technology. And it was based on a collaboration, originally the deep TMS technology, with the National Institute of Health. As you know, and maybe some of your listeners know, TMS has been around and has been studied for over 30 years. The H-coil, which we use with the Brainsway system, was invented in 2000 by Professor Zangen and Dr. Roth, and in order to look to stimulate deeper and broader brain structures. So the technology really opens up the door for deep TMS to become a viable treatment for a number of psychiatric as well as neurological conditions. We got FDA clearance for depression back in 2013. We got OCD clearance in 2018. And just recently, a couple weeks ago, we got our first addiction product cleared, which is for smoking addiction. So really excited about that. But we're now over 100 employees within the company. And we're obviously in the middle of this pandemic that's going on, but it's been amazing, the resilience of our employees and our partners like you at Achieve on what we're trying to do, and it couldn't be more paramount than it is obviously at this time. I mean, everything that's going on. In fact, last week there was the OCD awareness campaign. We actually launched OCD Awareness Week, and we launched a campaign last week called The Real OCD. Because a lot of people kind of get confused because the word OCD term gets kind of thrown around. So I love it. We've been doing a lot of campaigns and trying to build awareness. Why I joined Brainsway? Well, really, I think I described to you, I went to grad school here at MIT in Boston, and I was really focused there. My graduate was really focused on doing minimal invasive work in the brain. And then the first company I joined happened to be here in Boston as well, in Burlington, Massachusetts, a company called Radionics, where we were doing these amazing non-invasive treatments for brain tumors. And then we started doing a bunch of different other things around like Parkinson's disease, and it was all about minimal invasive and non-invasive treatments of the brain. So that was really my first love. So my passion around minimal invasive brain technology is really what really kind of brought me to Brainsway. I would say that was the first thing. The second thing, which was really exciting to me, because I knew about TMS technology even in the early 2000s. I had a company that came to me that was looking to commercialize the technology, and I was very skeptical about the technology, to be honest with you. But when I looked at Brainsway and really kind of got into depth on the clinical studies and the way they were done and the differentiation and what the company was doing, to be able to go deeper and broader with the structures really got me excited. And really that kind of grew into the third reason I joined, because of that differentiation in the technology and because it was a better treatment. It also allowed for a platform to not only just do depression treatments like other TMS companies, but to do more things with the technology. That was really the third thing. And I would say the most powerful thing for me was the last reason, and it was really to make the ability to really have a huge impact on many, many people. And I've spent most of my career, like I talked about, in the brain, and most of my career was specific around cancer. But if you look at mental health and some of these neurological diseases, they dwarf everything else. I mean, people, when they think about medical device, they think about cancer treatments, or they think about orthopedic treatments, right? Like hip and knee surgery. But this is just a huge, can make a huge impact. And so I can't tell you, I'm so proud to be part of this organization.
That's awesome. It's interesting because I think that I can kind of parallel my experience with Brainsway and coming on board with Achieve, that, some of what you're saying brought you to, want to be a leader at Brainsway, is why we made the choice to go with the Brainsway machine. We liked the fact that as a company, you're focused on research and development and looking at other indications. We liked the efficacy that we saw with the results in the clinical studies. And for me, with a background in mental health, having worked sort of in the trenches in the front line, both in outpatient and inpatient care, with people suffering with things like major depression and OCD, when I saw the initial results, not only just from the clinical studies, but in real life, in real time, here in Northampton, where we opened our first site, it was like I was sold. And to see people who have suffered with debilitating depression, some people for 20 years, improve with this treatment without the side effect profile, it was life-changing for me as a provider. I'm the director of operations, but I will forever be a social worker, which I got my degree in social work from Boston University. So I'm a Boston person as well. I just made my way out to Western Mass. So I can relate sort of from both a personal perspective, but also from a business perspective at Achieve. And part of what we feel like differentiates us from other providers and or companies that provide TMS is the fact that we provide this highly effective treatment, and we are connected to a company that doesn't just throw all their money into marketing, which marketing's important, but really sees the importance of creating more life-changing options for other indications as well. And that inspires us all here at Achieve. So I think we're on the same playing field with this, all just coming at it, from a little bit of a different direction.
Yeah, there's absolutely no question. I mean, I can tell you for the first time in my career, I have a closer connection with patients than I ever have. I find myself sometimes in these very COVID nights where I can't sleep. Sometimes I get onto Facebook, and there's a couple of chat rooms on there where patients are kind of talking about TMS, and it's amazing to see people's experience, especially when people are advocating deep TMS over traditional TMS, and they're actually talking about the reasons why. But just to hear the stories, like you just mentioned, where you have a person that they talk about being in a in a basically a room with no lights on, then all of a sudden after the treatment the lights go on and they look at the world differently. And then having talked to, when I was in my diligence period about trying to figure out whether I wanted to join or not, I talked to a number of psychiatrists that had the technology, and they basically were like, this has changed the way we look at treating patients. And it's so gratifying to hear that. By the way, my dad was a professor of surgery at Boston University. So so he was a medical doctor, and so we got a lot of good Boston connections.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
Are you a Celtics fan?
Of course I'm a Celtics fan.
Okay, just checking, because that's big. I mean, it's Red Sox, Celtics, Patriots. So,
the biggest thing, I'm a Patriots fan. I'm a over 30-year season ticket holder.
awesome.
I went to 5 Super Bowls. I love the Patriots. Big for me.
Yeah. It's been a little bit painful year for Patriots Nation.
Yes, it sure has.
But we're getting through it. So.
Yep.
So you were talking about the recent FDA approval of smoking addiction. And, we're obviously excited here at Achieve to learn more about what some of the options may be for a different sort of population group than the people we're working with right now. Some overlap. But tell me a little bit about this FDA clearance and so forth.
Absolutely. So maybe a little bit about the motivation first. So like I talked about, obviously depression is a very big market, and there's lots of patients out there that, as you know directly, that cannot get help either from psychotherapy or medications. And to be able to offer them an alternative as opposed to doing something a little bit more drastic, like an invasive procedure, is great. And then especially with OCD, as you mentioned. So, with OCD patients, there are only 5 medications that are out there. So looking at alternative treatments like that, we're so excited about. So at Brainsway, we are playing that delicate balance. And that's the thing I love about it. The first company I joined, I told you about, was in Burlington, Massachusetts here, a company called Radionics. And we were really focused on bringing what we termed at the time trusted accuracy to treatments, which was minimal invasive things to the brain. And we did a number of different things. The cool thing about it was that the CEO and the owner of the company at the time, he was a PhD MIT professor. And I learned there at an early time in my career where I was making my transition from grad school and then going into a company. There has to be a good balance between continued research on what we're trying to do and bring additional products to it. And that's what I love about the Brainsway technology, is the platform technology. So we're looking at a number of different things. I'm sure you'll probably ask me about that at some point. What are the other things that we're looking at? But one of the things that we've looked at from brain disorder perspective is other addictions. What can we do? So smoking was the first thing that we attempted. We had some really good feasibility studies on smoking, even going back 10 years ago, because when we get clearance, it's a long process that has to go in place. So the motivation, obviously, there's 34 million still today, about 10% of the population, 34 million US adults that are smoking cigarettes. And each year, almost 500,000 deaths occur from smoking. And even though there's been a huge public health initiatives that have been raised awareness around the dangers of smoking, there's 16 million people still live with a smoking related diseases, right? Mm-hmm. And traditional smokers who are looking to quit, they've tried a number of different strategies, whether it's completely going cold turkey, psychotherapy, patches, gums, and then in some cases medications like Chantix or Zyban. And having watching a lot of football myself, I remember last year the turkey coming on all the time. I didn't know what the turkey was at the time, but it was for Chantix, the medication. But really, the people that try to quit smoking, each year, only about 6% really achieve it. So we felt, with a new coil that's targeting a different part of the brain. So as well, and maybe the listeners don't know well, we have these different helmets. So we have a blue helmet, which is used for depression. We have a yellow helmet, which is used for OCD. But in that helmet is a particular coil that we have, and this is the sort of the science behind Brainsway, is these particular coils that we've developed that allow us to go deeper and broader into the brain without any worries about safety, right? So, and that's been really well tested. We've done over 30 randomized clinical trials with the technology. So this new coil, which we call the H4 coil, which the helmet will actually be green, really provides a new option for individuals that are really looking to potentially quit smoking. I could give you a little bit of, around the FDA clearance data if you want to know that. Maybe
sure.
That sound so.
Synopsis is good.
Yeah. So whenever we clear these products, whether it was for depression or whether it was for OCD or now for this first addiction product, which is smoking, we do a clinical trial, right? We do a clinical trial where a patient will end up getting, and this is the thing that excited me so much, is about reading about the clinical trials. We end up doing a clinical trial where a patient will either get randomized into an active treatment or they'll get randomized into what's called a placebo or a sham treatment, which is they're not getting the treatment. They don't know the difference. The patient doesn't know the difference. The doctor doesn't know the difference. Everything actually feels the same and sounds the same. But in this case, we did 262 patients. And the study was amazing because these patients were highly addictive. Over 70% had tried 3 or more failed attempts to quit smoking. And of the patients that actually completed the treatment cycle, which was 18 treatments, so it was a treatment every day for 3 weeks and then 1 treatment for the following 3 weeks, 28% of them achieved a 4 consecutive week of abstinence of smoking, which is just truly amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And in addition to that, the people that didn't completely quit, we saw that their smoking dropped quite a bit. So potentially they were maybe, their smoking basically decreased. And just like we've had in our other trials, no seizures or no symptomatic side effects or anything like that sometimes people are concerned. So very similar to what you're seeing in the treatments for depression, as well as OCD.
That's great. That's great. Now,
so really excited about it.
Also, yeah, it is very exciting. One of the things that we're also interested in, and I think because it's such a health crisis in the U.S. in particular, is opioid addiction. And in my time working both in inpatient psychiatry and outpatient psychiatry, I've worked with a lot of people struggling with heroin addiction or pain medication addiction. I've worked with people on methadone. I've worked with people on Suboxone. It's a big deal. I've worked with parents whose kids, young adult kids, were addicted, and they saw them, they were worried they were going to someday, go into their room and they were going to have overdosed, or end up on the streets because, they were using all their money. So it's a big deal. And I know that you all are involved in some research on opioid addiction. I don't know to the degree what you can talk about around it, but I was interested in hearing, and I'm sure other people would be interested in hearing what's going on there.
Yeah, absolutely. So, for us as a growing medical device company, again, it's trying to play that right balance from a commercial perspective and what we can bring to the market with new technology, because everything, obviously, it takes time, energy, all that kind of leads to money. We do have a number of things that we're looking at for other indications. Addiction's a big thing that we looked at. You mentioned opioids. Alcohol is another thing that we've had really great feasibility studies on. Cocaine's another thing we've had really good feasibility studies on. It just, again, it takes time. All of these things actually look quite good where we can make a positive effect. It's just going through the process, the FDA clearance, all of this takes time, energy, and money to be able to get it done. And I think some of the things, unfortunately, with COVID have slowed things down. We are running a number of clinical trials today. Like I mentioned, we have done completed 32 randomized controlled trials, more than any other, I would say, TMS company that's out on the market today. And we're currently running 10 right now at this process. But everything has really been slowed down around because of COVID. Not necessarily like we see all of our customers in the United States and other parts of the world, the customers have really come back, but it seems like something's happening with those clinical trials have slowed down. We have also looked at other indications, neurological areas where we can make a big effect as well. One thing that, there's about 1 million patients in the United States that have multiple sclerosis, so MS, and they get severe, and about out of that million, about 80% of them have really severe fatigue. So it makes it very difficult for them. Once they wake up in the morning, they have some coffee, they have their breakfast, and then they start either trying to do something. About an hour in, they can have huge fatigue where they have to go back and lie down. We've actually showed some really good promising results there. We've looked at other things like neurological pain disorders and some really exciting stuff potentially around post-stroke patients as well. So I think, the beauty behind this is that it's non-invasive, very minimal side effects, and we can make really big changes for people that are having a specific brain disorders. So it's really exciting about the technology, and I couldn't be more happier about, the things that we're doing. But unfortunately, some of these things take time, right? So
Sure, absolutely. And you ultimately want it to take time because you want to have the best, most accurate results and information out there.
Absolutely.
We don't want things to get rushed and then not have the outcomes we're looking for or so forth. So I definitely appreciate that. Well, I thank you so much for taking time to speak with me today. I got to know a little more about you and all your Boston connections, which is very exciting to me.
Yeah.
I'm a huge sports fan, so and I'm a huge Boston fan. So it's cool that we have that in connection. And now we have Brainsway and providing hope to people as a connection as well. So thank you for your time today and sharing this information with us.
Well, listen, thank you. This was a pleasure. And thank you for everything that you are doing. You have really the direct connection with the patients out there. And for us as a company, we're doing all that we can to build awareness, because to me, this is like the best kept secret in medicine. So thank you for everything you're doing and really doing the direct connection with the patients. I really appreciate it. And thank you for the time.
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you all for listening and or watching. I hope you have a great week this week and be well.